All right, we're going to cover number of characters. It says write a function that takes in a string of lowercase characters. So because we're explicitly saying, hey, this string is only going to take in lowercase characters, you can forget about handling any cases with regards to uppercase characters. And it returns an object containing the count for each letter in the string. All right, let's check this out. So takes in a string and returns an object. So write a function that takes in a string and returns, well, yeah, string argument. I'll just say count characters just because that's what it is. All right, and it's going to return an object. So we're inserting a string but returning an object. So we're probably going to need to declare an object somewhere in the program. So I'm just going to declare it. I generally like to declare my variables up top if they're going to be used throughout the entire function. So I said declare object variable named count, let's call character object. All right, that works. So declare an object variable named, all right, yeah, just declare an object variable named character object. It's going to be an empty object. An empty object variable named character object. So this is probably going to be loops. So it is loop. So I'm going to loop through the string. There's a couple ways you can do that. If you're comfortable looping through arrays, you can split the string into an array and loop through that, or you can just loop through the string. There's really no difference, except that if you split something, it could take a little more longer for your function to execute, but just for all intensive purposes, either way is fine. So I'm going to say, I'm going to loop through the string, and then I'm going to do an if statement. So at each character, I'm going to say, check, hey, this is what my object needs to look like. I'm just going to put that down here like that. I'm going to, for each character, when I loop through it, I'm going to say, hey, does this character exist as a key in my empty object variable? And if it does, I'm going to increment this key by 1. If it doesn't, so if B does not exist in this character object, I'm going to assign it a key of B with an initial value of 1, because every time a character shows up should be a key on your object. So loop through the string. If character exists on object or character object, increment key value by 1. Else, so I'm going to say if else, so if the character does not exist, that's what this else statement is, I'm going to assign character as a key on the character object with an initial value of 1, because it's the first time that this object is seeing that character. And then once it loops through it, I can just return the character object. Once it loops through the entire string, so this first one, loop through the string, it's going to say, hey, does B exist on this character object? The first time, it does not. So it's going to come down here, assign the character as a key on the character object with an initial value of 1, because it initially sees it once. Comes the D. If the character exists on the character object, it does not. It's going to come down here, assign D as a key with an initial value of 1. I'm going to move this over. And then likewise.
So we actually did one like that similar today with Noah. It was like when you greet the customer the first time, it like added them to the object. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly if you kind of encountered something similar. Yep. So let's actually try to convert this to code. Let's convert this pseudocode to actual code. Let character object equal an empty object. That's an array. And then I'm going to loop through that string. So I'm going to let I equal 0 because I'm starting at index 0 of the string. And as long as I is less than the string dot length, and then I'm going to increment the index by 1 every time. So I'm just going to console log the value, or the character, the value at that specific index in that string. So if I just copy this, I don't need this anymore. If I run this, I get B, D, A, C, D, B, blah, blah, blah. So now I can say if the character exists on my character object, increment it by 1. So I can say if, this is where truthy and falsy values come into play. We'll cover that probably next session. So I can say if character object, this specific value is a key on here, it resolves to a true statement. So if this character, if it looks into here and it's like, hey, this exists on this object, this value here, which is B, D, A, C, if it exists on this object, that means it's true. And I can come into here and character object, string at index I can increment it by 1. Else, I can assign, essentially, assign a character as a key. So right here, I'm taking whatever character, B, D, A, C, and I'm assigning it to a key on this character object, and I'm equally assigning it to the value of 1. So let's just come in here and let's console log character object right here and right here. And let's just run that. So initially comes into here. I'll just say else because this is the else statement. And this is the first if statement, just so you can kind of see which is which down here. So the first time it sees it, it jumps into this else statement, assigns B 1, and then next time D comes down, jumps in this else statement, assigns D as 1. A likewise jumps in this else statement, assigns A as 1, and then we see C is also in this else because C does not exist on the character object yet. Assigns C to a value of 1. And then it jumps into D, comes into here. D does exist on the character object already. So we're going to increment the value at the key D by 1. So now D equals 2. Now we get into A. A exists. Incrementing A by 1. A again. Incrementing A again by 1 right here. So we get 3. And at the very end, we can return, once it loops through the entire string, we can return the character object. If I run that, there we go, we get that. If I run the tests, there we go. And just separately. There's the pseudocode. I can submit it. All right. See, model solution. Yeah, it's pretty much the same. All right.